are lying there, staring at the ceiling, feeling a weight on your chest. You think you are tired because you worked too hard today. You think you are stressed because of your packed schedule, but you are not just physically tired. You are exhausted because you have been spending your entire life wanting the wrong things. We live in a blind and eager pursuit of a happy life. Yet the more haste we make in the wrong direction, the further we are from our journey's end. For 2,000 years, human beings have made the exact same mistake. We want the promotion. We want the approval of that specific person. We want a life free from sickness, financial struggle, and unpredictability. But as the ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus warned, desire demands the attainment of what you want. And if you desire things outside your own power, you will necessarily be disappointed. You are suffering right now because your desires are anchored to a world that owes you nothing and promises you nothing. Think about your day today. How many times did your mood drop because someone didn't respond the way you wanted? How much anxiety did you feel over a future event that hasn't even happened yet? We give our peace of mind away for free, trading it for the illusion of control. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius realized this after having all the wealth and absolute power in the world. He wrote to himself, noting that he had wandered all over and never found how to live not in syllogisms, not in money, or fame, or self-indulgence. The Stoics had a word for the peace you are looking for right now, ataraxia, which means tranquility, or freedom from disturbance by external things. But this tranquility comes at a price. It requires a radical shift in how you view the world. You must realize that aiming for such a great state of peace means you must entirely quit some attachments and postpone others. If you want true freedom, you cannot wish for anything that depends on others. Otherwise, you must necessarily be a slave. But here is the part no one tells you about letting go. Letting go is not about giving up. It is about waking up. Right now, you are treating external things, your reputation, your property, your status, as if they truly belong to you. But these things are naturally weak, dependent, and alien. If you attribute freedom to things that are dependent by nature, you will be hindered, you will lament, and you will find fault with both gods and men. Imagine a cup you love. The Stoics advise that if you are fond of a piece of china, you should say to yourself, "I am fond of a piece of china." When it breaks, you won't be utterly disconcerted. We must apply this same logic to everything in our modern lives. The anxiety keeping you awake tonight is the lingering fear of your cup breaking, whether that cup is your career trajectory, your romantic relationship, or your social standing. To find genuine rest, we must practice the discipline of desire. This means confining our desires and aversions only to what is in our complete control, our own thoughts, impulses, and will. It makes perfect sense to spend our time and energy on things we completely control, because, in these cases, our efforts have guaranteed results. But worrying about the uncontrollable is a guaranteed recipe for misery. As Seneca noted, everyone you see is in pursuit of joy, but they do not know where great and lasting joy is to be had. They seek joy in the midst of anxiety, turning to things that are actually causes of pain. Tomorrow morning, You will wake up and face a chaotic world. You will be tempted to want people to act fairly. You will want your plans to succeed perfectly. But remember, it is a fundamental rule that some things are within our control, and some are not. You don't control life, but you always control yourself. Take a deep breath. Let the heavy attachments of the day fall away. In the next part, we will explore exactly how to untangle your mind from the opinions of others, and why seeking validation is the ultimate trap. Marcus Aurelius once wrote a private note to himself that exposes the most absurd thing human beings do. He observed, "I'm constantly amazed by how easily we love ourselves above all others. Yet we put more stock in the opinions of others than in our own estimation of self." Think about how much of your day is spent managing your image. You choose your words, your clothes, and sometimes even your life's path based on an invisible audience. You desperately want to be admired. You want to be seen as successful, smart, and attractive. But the Stoics classified reputation and social status as externals, things fundamentally outside of your direct control. When you anchor your inner peace to how many people approve of you, you are voluntarily enslaving yourself. You are trading your true autonomy for a fleeting pat on the back. Epictetus pointed out this bizarre contradiction perfectly. He asked his students to imagine a scenario. If a person gave away your body to some passerby, you'd be furious. Yet you hand over your mind to anyone who comes along, so they may abuse you. Leaving it disturbed and troubled, have you no shame in that? Every time you let a passing comment ruin your morning, every time you let someone's lack of validation make you feel invisible, you are actively handing over your mind. You are giving a coworker, a stranger on the internet, or an ex-partner the remote control to your nervous system. To win the admiration of others, you inevitably have to adopt their values. You have to live a life that is deemed successful according to their definitions, which are fickle, contradictory, and constantly shifting. This is a game designed to make you lose. It is a treadmill that never stops. So, what happens when they don't validate you? What happens when they criticize, ignore, or insult you? Our default setting is to fight back, to defend ourselves, or to crumble in shame. But the Stoic approach is radically different. Epictetus taught that it is not enough to be hit or insulted to be harmed. You must actually believe that you are being harmed. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your own mind is complicit in that provocation. Imagine you are standing next to a large stone, and someone walks up and starts screaming insults at it. What effect will they produce? Absolutely none. The Stoics challenge you to listen to insults exactly like that stone. It might sound impossible, but remember, the insult itself is just air vibrating. Modern psychology calls this cognitive distancing. It is the ability to view your thoughts and the events around you as separate from your core identity, observing them like leaves floating down a stream. The pain you feel does not come from their words. It comes from your judgment that their words somehow diminish your worth. The next time someone criticizes you, or you feel the familiar sting of being left out, you must practice what the Stoics called the discipline of assent. This means catching your automatic emotional reaction before it completely takes over your mind. When that heat rises in your chest, pause, take a slow, deep breath. Speak directly to that feeling and say, "You are just an impression and not at all the thing you seem to be." This is the essence of the Stoic fork, the sharp, uncompromising division between what is up to you and what is not. Ask yourself, is this person's opinion within my complete control? The answer is always no. Therefore, be ready to tell yourself, "Then it is none of my concern." By refusing to add your own negative value judgment to the event, you strip the insult of its power. You remove the value from it, literally. The freedom you are looking for is not the freedom to be loved and praised by everyone. That is an exhausting fantasy. True freedom is the quiet self-assurance that comes from knowing you are living by your own principles, not performing for a crowd. You do not need their applause. You only need your own respect. But mastering the opinions of others is only the first layer of your defense. Even if you manage to silence the crowd, your own mind will try to betray you. It will project you into a future filled with worst-case scenarios and imaginary disasters. In the next part, we are going to look at the invisible, crushing weight of anxiety and how to stop suffering from things that haven't even happened yet. But even if you manage to silence the crowd, your own mind will try to betray you. It will project you into a future filled with worst-case scenarios, imaginary disasters, and endless what-ifs. You silence the opinions of others, only to be deafened by the noise of your own anxiety. We live so much of our lives in the future that we forget we are only truly alive right now. You are lying there, feeling the physical weight of tomorrow's obligations, next week's deadlines, or next year's uncertainties. You are exhausted because you are fighting battles that have not yet arrived. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius understood this crushing weight perfectly. He reminded himself that whether you look backward into the infinite chaos of the past, or forward into the infinite chaos of the future, our lives are just a tiny, fleeting point. You cannot lose the past because you no longer have it. You cannot lose the future because it is not yours yet. No man loses any other life than the exact moment he is living right now. Therefore, he gave himself this profound advice. Don't let the big picture of life oppress you. Don't dwell on what has happened in the past or what will happen in the future. Just ask yourself in the present, what is there in this work that I cannot endure or support? When you pause and genuinely ask yourself that question, you will find that you can always endure the present second. What breaks us is never the present moment. It is the sheer, compounding weight of the future layered on top of it. Neither the future nor the past can actually hurt you. Only the present exists. Yet, we willingly surrender our present peace to pay a debt of suffering before it is even due. The Stoics recognize that our anxiety comes from a deep, desperate demand for certainty. We want to know that our plans will succeed. We want a guarantee that our loved ones will be safe. We want the universe to sign a contract promising us a smooth, predictable path. But the universe makes no such promises. To demand certainty in a world governed by unpredictable change is to actively choose misery. Time is like a violent river, carrying things away as soon as they are seen. only to replace them with new things that will also be swept away. So, how do we stop drowning in this river of anxiety? We must change how we set our intentions. The Stoics practiced a powerful technique known as the reserve clause. This means setting your goals, making your plans, and working fiercely toward them, but always silently adding two words: fate permitting. I will get this promotion, fate permitting. I will fix this relationship, fate permitting. I will have a peaceful day tomorrow, fate permitting. This is not pessimism. It is ultimate psychological armor. By adding the reserve clause, you are acknowledging the reality of the universe. You are doing your absolute best in the areas you can control, while fully accepting that the final outcome belongs to fate. You detach your inner peace from the result. If your plan fails, you are not shattered, because your goal was never merely to succeed. Your goal was to try your best, with honorable intentions. The attempt itself is your success, regardless of what the world does with it. Think about the immense freedom in this shift. You no longer have to carry the burden of the outcome. You only have to carry the burden of your own effort. When you let go of your desperate need to control the future stops controlling you. The next time you feel that familiar knot of anxiety forming in your stomach, gently pull your mind back from the invisible future. Confine your attention strictly to the present moment. What is happening right now? Your heart is beating. Your lungs are drawing in air. The room is quiet. In this exact, isolated second, you are entirely okay. Take away your opinion that you are being harmed by tomorrow, and the harm vanishes completely. You suffer because you are demanding a guarantee that the universe cannot give. But what if you stopped asking for guarantees and instead learned to become unbreakable in the face of whatever happens? In the next part, we will explore how to build that ultimate resilience. We will look at a counterintuitive Stoic secret, how looking your worst fears directly in the eye is actually the key to destroying them forever. You spend your entire life running away from the things that scare you. You avoid thinking about losing your job. You quickly change the subject when someone mentions illness. You push away the terrifying thought of losing the people you love most. We believe that by ignoring these dark possibilities, we somehow protect ourselves from them. But what if running away is exactly what makes the monster grow? What if your desperate attempt to avoid pain is the very thing guaranteeing your suffering? The Stoics had a radical, counterintuitive approach to fear. Instead of running from it, they walked directly into it. They called this practice premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of future evils. It is the deliberate, intentional practice of visualizing your worst-case scenarios before they ever happen. Now, why would anyone, let alone someone seeking peace, want to imagine the worst on purpose? It sounds like a recipe for depression, but it is actually the ultimate antidote to anxiety. Seneca put it perfectly when he said that we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality. Misfortune weighs most heavily on those who expect nothing but good fortune. When you expect the world to be perfectly safe and predictable, every flat tire, every harsh word, and every unexpected bill feels like a catastrophic betrayal. But when you have already lived through the disaster in your mind, reality loses its sting. You rob present ills of their power because you have perceived their coming beforehand. You realize that you already possess the inner resources to survive whatever happens. Think about your biggest fear right now. Maybe it is financial ruin. Seneca advised his incredibly wealthy friend Lucilius not just to think about poverty, but to actually practice it. He told him to set aside a certain number of days to be content with the scantiest and cheapest food, wearing coarse and rough dress, and to ask himself, "Is this the condition that I feared?" By voluntarily stepping into discomfort, you strip it of its mystery and its terror. You realize that even if the worst happens, you will still be breathing. You will still have your mind. You will still be okay. But the Stoics went even further, touching on the most sensitive areas of our lives. Epictetus taught that when you kiss your child or your spouse, you should silently remind yourself that you are kissing a mortal being. He warned that we must keep in mind that all things everywhere are perishable. This sounds dark, perhaps even morbid, to our modern ears. But it is not about being pessimistic. It is about waking up to the reality of the present moment. When you assume your loved ones will always be there, you take them for granted. You scroll on your phone while they are talking. You hold on to petty grudges. But when you look at them and truly realize that your time together is finite and unpredictable, everything changes. The practice of negative visualization does not make you numb. It generates a profound, piercing sense of gratitude. It forces you to love them intensely right now, precisely because you know they are not yours to keep forever. You learn to enjoy the gifts of fortune without becoming a slave to them. Tomorrow, try this. When you get in your car, take 1 second to imagine it breaking down. When you walk into work, imagine the project failing. When you sit with someone you love, imagine it is your last meal together. Do not dwell on it until you panic. Just touch the thought lightly, and then let it go. Notice what happens. The anxiety about the future dissolves, replaced by a sudden, fierce appreciation for the present. You stop demanding that the universe give you permanence, and you start actually living in the fragile, beautiful reality of today. You don't control how long things last, but you always control how deeply you appreciate them while they are here. We have talked about letting go of other people's opinions and facing the terrifying future. But there is another enemy living inside your own house. It is the story you tell yourself about what happens to you. In the next part, we will explore the single most powerful Stoic realization, how to rewrite the narrative of your own life, and why nothing is truly bad unless you decide it is. You are lying in bed, and suddenly, a memory from earlier today flashes into your mind. Maybe it was a sharp comment from a coworker. Maybe it was an email you received, or a mistake you made. Instantly, your heart beats a little faster. Your muscles tense. You feel anger, or embarrassment, or regret. But let's pause and look at what is actually happening. The event is already over. The coworker is asleep. The email is just pixels on a screen. The mistake is buried in the past. So why are you suffering right now? The Stoics figured out the answer to this 2,000 years ago. and it is perhaps the single most liberating realization a human being can have. The philosopher Epictetus put it simply, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. It is not the event that is hurting you. It is the story you are telling yourself about the event. It is your judgment, your opinion, your inner narrative. We go through life believing that external events carry their own inherent good or bad qualities. We think losing a job is objectively bad. We think a traffic jam is objectively frustrating. But this next idea changes everything. Nature does not label things as good or bad. A rainstorm isn't bad because it ruins your picnic. It is just water falling from the sky. A flat tire isn't a curse from the universe. It is just rubber meeting a sharp object. The badness does not exist in the physical world. It exists entirely in your mind. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who faced plagues, betrayals, and wars, used this exact realization to keep his sanity. He wrote, "Take away your opinion, and then there is taken away the complaint. I have been harmed. Take away the complaint. I have been harmed, and the harm is taken away." Think about the immense, terrifying power you have accidentally given away. Every time you label a situation as a disaster, you are actively choosing to be harmed by it. But this also means you possess an incredible superpower. If your judgments are the root of your suffering, then you and only you hold the ultimate cure. The Stoics practiced a technique within what they call the discipline of assent. Assent means agreement. Throughout the day, your mind presents you with impressions, automatic thoughts, and judgments. Your mind says, "This person insulted me. This is terrible." The Stoic trains themselves not to automatically agree with this impression. Instead, they pause. They step back. They look at the thought and say, "You are just an impression, and not at all the thing you seem to be." How do you actually do this? You do it by studying each impression scientifically. You strip away the emotional adjectives and describe the event with cold, boring objectivity. If you lose your job, your automatic story is, "I am a failure. My life is ruined. I will never recover." That story guarantees a sleepless night. Now, strip the judgment. Decompose the event to its bare facts. My employer has terminated our contract. I currently do not have an income. I have skills I can offer elsewhere. Suddenly, the monster in the closet is just a coat hanging on a door. If someone breaks your heart, the story is, "I am unlovable, and I will be alone forever." The objective reality is, a human being made a choice to walk a different path. My life continues. This is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending to be a robot. It is about realizing that you do not have to suffer twice. Pain is inevitable in life, but suffering is a choice. Suffering is the extra layer of narrative we paint over our pain. When you strip away the narrative, you are left only with reality. And reality, in this exact, isolated second, is always something you can handle. You are the author of your life. The world hands you the raw material, but you are the one who writes the script. If you don't like the feeling of the story, rewrite the sentence. You don't have to call it a tragedy. You can simply call it a plot twist. But once you have cleared your mind of false judgments and calmed the storm of anxiety, a new question arises. How do you actually move forward? How do you take action in a world that is so unpredictable? In the next part, we are going to talk about the Stoic art of taking action. We will discover the secret to doing your absolute best without ever being crushed by failure. We measure our entire worth by the final score. We live in a society that tells us we are only as good as our outcomes. Did you get the job? Did your business succeed? Did that person say yes when you asked them out? We exhaust ourselves trying to guarantee these results. But the Stoics saw this obsession as a fundamental misunderstanding of reality. If you tie your inner peace to the final outcome, you will always be a hostage to chance. To explain how to take action in a wildly unpredictable world, the Stoics used a beautiful, simple metaphor, the archer. Imagine an archer stepping up to the line, holding a bow. She has complete control over how she stands. She controls how tightly she pulls the string back. She controls how carefully she aims, taking into account the distance and the weather. She does absolutely everything in her power to prepare for the perfect shot. But the exact millisecond that arrow leaves her fingers, her control drops to zero. A sudden gust of wind could blow the arrow off course. The target itself might move. Does a missed shot mean she is a terrible archer? No. She executed her process flawlessly. The Stoics tell us that we must approach every single action in our lives exactly like this archer. We must focus intensely on the process, the effort, the preparation, the honorable intention, and we must completely let go of the result. Think about the heaviest project or relationship you are managing right now. You are burning yourself out because you are demanding that it succeeds. You are carrying the weight of the wind and the target, things you cannot command. But you are aiming at the wrong thing. Seneca advises us to look at the purpose of our actions, not their consequences. Your goal is not to win the promotion. Your goal is to do the best, most focused work you can today. Your goal is not to force someone to love you. Your goal is to be a loving, honest, and supportive person. When you wake up tomorrow and face your to-do list, try this. Mentally divide your life into two boxes, the bow and the target. The bow is your morning routine, your focus, and the words you choose to say. The target is your boss's mood, the client's decision, and the market's reaction. Pour 100% of your energy into the bow. Do not spare a single ounce of worry for the target. When you define success as giving your absolute best effort in the present moment, you literally cannot fail. The attempt itself is the success. But this brings up the hardest question. What happens when things don't just miss the target, but actively block your path? What happens when you do everything right, and a massive, unfair obstacle falls right in front of you? Our default reaction is despair. We feel cheated. We ask, why is this happening to me? This next idea changes everything. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius offered one of the most powerful mindset shifts in human history. He observed that a small spark can be smothered by a log thrown onto it, but a roaring, blazing fire consumes whatever is thrown into it, turning the obstacle into flame and brightness. The obstacle actually becomes its fuel. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The obstacle is not preventing you from taking action. The obstacle is your new action. If your car breaks down, The obstacle is the delay, but the action is practicing patience. If a coworker is rude to you, the obstacle is their behavior, but the action is practicing self-control, kindness, and forgiveness. If you fail a test, the action is practicing resilience and humility. You never have to be stuck. You never have to be a victim. You simply change the direction of your effort. You turn the frustration, the delay, and the unfairness into the raw material for becoming a better, stronger human being. You don't control the target. You only control the bow. Let the arrow fly, and whatever stands in your way, let it burn to make you brighter. In the next part, we will explore what happens when the obstacles aren't just events, but people. We will learn the Stoic secret to protecting your peace from the toxicity, judgment, and anger of others. You can silence your own anxieties. You can reframe your own fears. But what happens when the chaos isn't coming from inside your head? What happens when the obstacle standing right in front of you is another human being? We all have them. The coworker who takes credit for your late nights. The driver who recklessly cuts you off in traffic. The family member who knows exactly which buttons to push to unravel your confidence. We lose hours, sometimes days, of our lives consumed by resentment toward these people. We think, if only they would act properly, I could finally be at peace. But Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who literally ruled the known world, knew that expecting people to behave perfectly was a trap. Even with absolute power, he couldn't force people to be good. So, he started his mornings with a harsh, grounding truth. He wrote in his private diary, "Begin each day by telling yourself, today, I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil." He didn't write this to be cynical. He wrote it as armor. By anticipating the difficult behavior of others, he eliminated the shock. When you expect everyone to be fair and kind, every slight feels like a profound betrayal. But when you accept the reality of human nature, you become emotionally bulletproof. When someone attacks you, your default biological reaction is to fight back. You want to match their energy. But the Stoics warn that anger is a temporary madness, and the damage it causes is almost always worse than the original offense. When we get angry, we drink poison and wait for the other person to suffer. The ultimate secret to handling toxic people lies in one brilliant, uncompromising rule. The best way to avenge yourself is to not be like that. If someone treats you with rudeness, and you respond with rudeness, you haven't defended your honor, you have merely proven them right. You have let them drag you down into the mud. So, how do you actually stop the heat rising in your chest? You must radically shift your perspective on why people do bad things. The Stoics believe that nobody does wrong on purpose. They simply suffer from a lack of knowledge of what is truly good. If a person acts from a false impression, they are the ones who are genuinely deceived and hurt. Imagine being furious at someone because they are physically blind and bumped into you. You wouldn't scream at them. You would feel compassion. The philosopher Epictetus taught that we should feel the exact same way about people who are morally blind, just as we pity the blind and the lame. We should pity those who are blinded and lamed in their most sovereign faculties. Their hostility is a symptom of their own inner suffering. This next idea changes everything about how you handle criticism. Epictetus pointed out that it is not the person giving abuse or blows who affronts you, but your own view of these things as insulting. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your own mind is complicit in the provocation. Imagine standing next to a large rock and screaming insults at it. What effect does it produce? Absolutely nothing. You possess the power to listen to insults exactly like that stone. Or, if you want to completely disarm your critics, use the ultimate Stoic shield, self-deprecating humor. When you hear that someone has been speaking ill of you, do not defend yourself against the rumors. Instead, smile and say, "He did not know my other faults, or he would not have mentioned these alone." By refusing to take the insult seriously, you rob them of their only weapon. Tomorrow, when someone crosses you, pause. Take a deep breath from your diaphragm. Remember that human beings were made to cooperate, designed to work together like the upper and lower rows of teeth. To work against each other is contrary to nature. And before you judge them with righteous fury, turn to yourself and reflect on the times you have made the exact same mistakes. You don't control other people, but you always control how much of your peace you give away to them. But even if you manage to handle difficult people and quiet your anxieties, there is one final, terrifying reality we all spend our lives running from. It is the ultimate test of our peace. In the next part, we will confront the one thing that strips away all our illusions, the ticking clock of our own mortality. We spend our entire lives running from a single, undeniable fact. We distract ourselves with work, with entertainment, with arguments, and with endless planning for a future that is completely unpromised. We avoid thinking about our mortality because we are convinced that acknowledging it will depress us. But what if denying the end is the very thing that makes your life feel so heavy, anxious, and unfulfilled? You already have a terminal diagnosis. Every single person is born with a death sentence, and every second that passes by is a second you will never get back. The ancient Stoics believed that our desperate attempt to ignore our own mortality is the root of almost all our anxiety. Seneca, a man who survived exile and faced his own execution, observed something profound about human nature. He realized that our biggest mistake is thinking that we look forward toward death. In reality, most of death is already gone. Whatever time has passed in your life is already owned by death. We do not suddenly die at the end of our lives. We die every day, inching toward that final moment from the second we take our first breath. But here is the part no one tells you about facing the end. Reflecting on your mortality does not sadden you. It invigorates you. It provides sudden, piercing clarity. The philosopher Epictetus reminded his students that men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Death is nothing terrible. He said, "The terror consists entirely in our notion that death is terrible." When we strip away our emotional baggage, what actually is dying? It is simply the dissolution of the elements of which every living being is compounded. You are made of the universe, and you are simply returning to it. There is no harm in these elements changing into another form, because it is according to nature, and absolutely nothing is evil which is according to nature. We are literally made of cosmic dust, and we will return to cosmic dust, allowing new life to take our place in the workings of the universe. Yet, because we fear this perfectly natural transition, we cling to life desperately. Seneca noted the tragic irony of how people exist. They do not want to live, but they do not know how to die. We demand a long life, but we waste the days we currently have on petty grievances and pointless stress. Seneca warned that no one can have a peaceful life who thinks too much about lengthening it, or believes that a long life is a great blessing. When you are constantly focused on trying to survive into an imaginary future, you forget to actually live right now. So, how do we use this truth to find ultimate peace? The Roman Emperor, Marcus Aurelius, faced plagues, wars, and the constant threat of assassination. To keep himself grounded, he wrote a command in his private journal that sounds shocking today. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. Imagine that your life ended yesterday. It is completely over. The curtain has fallen, but through some miraculous twist of fate, you have been granted today as a bonus. How would you treat this day? You certainly wouldn't spend a bonus day arguing with a stranger on the internet. You wouldn't spend it anxious about a meeting next month. You would step outside, feel the cold air in your lungs, look at the people you love, and realize how incredibly lucky you are just to be breathing. Marcus Aurelius gave himself this final, clarifying rule. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. When you accept that your time is strictly limited, you stop tolerating things that drain your soul. You stop waiting for the perfect time to be happy. You stop caring about the judgments of people who will eventually be buried in the exact same ground as you. We all face the exact same end. As Marcus Aurelius noted, Alexander the Great and his mule keeper were both brought to the exact same place by death. Death is the radical equalizer, a profound lesson in abject humility. It strips away the superficial and leaves only what truly matters: your character, your choices, and the present moment. To philosophize, the ancients said, is to learn how to die, because only when you know how to die can you truly know how to live. You don't control how much time you have, but you always control what you do with the time that remains. In our ninth and final part, we will pull all of these threads together. We will discover the ultimate Stoic formula for daily living, and how to permanently anchor this unshakable peace into your everyday life. You now know the exact architecture of your own suffering. For years, you have been fighting a war against an enemy that doesn't actually exist outside of your own head. You thought peace was a destination you could reach by finally earning enough money, by finally finding the perfect partner, or by finally getting everyone to respect you. But as we have seen, tying your happiness to anything outside of your own mind is the ultimate trap. The ancient Stoics stripped the complexity of human life down to a single, unbreakable formula. It is an operating system you can carry in your pocket, into every meeting, every argument, and every sleepless night. It consists of just 3 simple rules that encompass the entire philosophy. Rule number 1. Control your perceptions. Rule number 2. Direct your actions properly. Rule number 3. Willingly accept what is outside your control. Let's look at how you will use this tomorrow. Your perceptions are the filter through which the entire universe must pass. When a crisis hits, your first job is simply to not get worked up. Strip away the catastrophic language. Stop telling yourself that a lost job is a tragedy or a broken relationship is the end of your life. Decompose the event into its bare, boring facts. You have the power to look at any terrifying situation and say, "You are just an impression, and not at all the thing you seem to be." Take away the opinion that you have been harmed, and the harm disappears completely. To direct your actions properly means stepping up to the line like the archer. You draw the bow, you account for the wind, and you take the shot with absolute focus. But the moment the arrow leaves your hand, you let go of the result. You must act with a reserve clause, adding the silent condition, fate permitting, to every plan you make. You do your job. You treat people with kindness and justice, even when they are insolent or ungrateful, because you know their toxic behavior comes from a place of moral blindness. And when an obstacle blocks your path, you do not despair. You use it as fuel. What stands in the way becomes the way. Willingly accepting what is outside your control is the final and hardest step. It is what the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche later called amor fati, a love of your fate. It is not enough to merely tolerate the things you cannot change. You must learn to embrace them. If you only want the things that the universe is already giving you, your desires will never be frustrated. If you stop wanting a life free of pain, and instead want a life where you are strong enough to endure pain, you become invincible. But how do you actually make this your reality? You do it through a daily routine. The Stoics were the original masters of the morning and evening ritual. Tomorrow morning, before you look at your phone, take 1 minute to mentally prepare. Remind yourself that you will meet difficult people, unexpected delays, and unfair criticism. Put your psychological armor on before you walk out the door. And tonight, before you go to sleep, put your day up for review. Ask yourself, what did I do wrong today? What did I do right? What petty emotion did I allow to steal my peace? Epictetus reminded his students that every habit is preserved and increased by corresponding actions. If you want to stop being angry, don't feed the habit of anger. Count the days you manage to remain calm. Do not judge yourself with harshness, but with the cold, clear eye of a teacher correcting a student. The goal is not perfection. The perfect Stoic sage is just an ideal. The goal is simply progress. It is about waking up tomorrow and being just a little bit better, a little bit stronger, and a little bit more untroubled than you were today. If you want peace, you have to stop wanting the wrong things. You have to stop demanding that the world conform to your fragile expectations. Stop wanting people to never let you down. Stop wanting a guarantee that you will never fail. Stop wanting to live forever. Instead, want only what is entirely yours. Want a character that cannot be broken. Want a mind that is a fortress, Want the quiet, profound dignity of knowing that no matter what the universe takes away from you, it can never take your ability to choose your own response. The storm will always rage outside. Let it rage. You have built a fire inside. You don't control life, but you always control yourself. As you close your eyes tonight, let go of the heavy baggage you have been carrying. The world will keep spinning, the chaos will continue, but your mind is now your own sanctuary. If these words brought you a sense of quiet clarity, if you feel a little lighter than when you first started listening, I invite you to leave a comment below. Tell me exactly what you are choosing to let go of tomorrow. Subscribe to this channel and join our community of quiet seekers, people who are actively choosing inner peace over outer validation. Share this video with someone who you know is exhausted from fighting battles they cannot win. Thank you for spending this time with me. Sleep well, rest your mind, and remember, when you wake up tomorrow, you alone hold the pen to your story. See you next video. Good night.